I'm here to talk about my Liberation Notes, episodes 7 and 8. This is a K drama that I really love. It is so good in terms of Lee Min-gi being Chang Hee and then his two siblings, which is Mi-jung and Gi-jung, and then of course Mr. Gu. So Mr. Gu finally started chatting and being a little more vocal and communicative during the first, I think, in starting in episodes 5, 6, and absolutely in 7 and 8. He is now romanticizing and going on little dates with Mi-jung, which is Ji-won. So Kim Ji-won's character finally is doing the goddess thing where she is going on small dates with Mr. Gu. They're really getting to know each other, and finally, she is kind of coming into her own, getting confidence to do interactions with her coworkers. With As a temporary employee, I don't think that you get a lot of respect from the higher ups, which is very unfortunate because I think if you're a good employee, you're a good employee. It doesn't matter what your title is. But I think, especially in certain societies and certain company cultures, title means a lot, which is kind of unfortunate because some people can have like this really expansive big title and they may not be the best workers. But I think Mi-jung, who is Ji-won, the actress Ji-won is playing her, she is a great worker. And I think that that's pretty much all of the family members. All three siblings hold work in Seoul, even though it's a trek to get out there. And their parents, even though they don't have great communication with their children, they're hardworking. They are very family oriented. The father even bailed out his sister for quite some time, just several times, I guess, bailing her out, even though her businesses failed. So I think that says a lot in terms of the father. Sometimes you just have to let it go, though, because if she's not good at business, then just stop. She could get an office job as well. So yeah, Mr. Gu, he's doing really well, but Ji-won, or excuse me, Gi-jung, the oldest sister, she is struggling with herself because she is very emotionally emotive. She's very outwardly expressive. I think people who are viewing this K-drama, they know what is going on with her life because she is that expressive. She says what's on her mind, but while Mi-jung, she doesn't say a lot. She's not that outwardly expressive or communicative with a lot of different people. Gi-jung, on the other hand, is chatting away with everybody, much louder in her interactions, and she is struggling with her self-confidence because she is in love with the single dad, but the single dad has a lot of different obligations that he can't just run away from, like the daughter, as well as the family restaurant. He is helping out with the family restaurant every night, and then helping his daughter to do schoolwork and to be present in her life as well. So yeah, he's got a lot of obligations. And then the daughter and the single dad's sister, they both don't like Gi-jung. She said some not nice things about single dads and how she could never date them because it just is a lot of extra pressure, and who would want to date like that? But now she's in a lot of angst and just a lot of anxiety over this relationship. But I kind of also feel like that's her personality. I think she just wears her heart on her sleeve. So she's always going to be very outwardly expressive, whether she's happy, carefree, or if she is struggling because of whatever is going on in her mind. She doesn't keep it locked up and bottled inside. And I think that that's a good thing because I think when you suppress those types of emotions, they can be very tiring and trying to your soul, and that could manifest itself into physical problems, which is never a good thing. But that's just kind of my opinion about that. But yeah, here's the siblings, And I think that Gi-jung knows that Mi-jung, Ji-won's character, is dating Mr. Gu. And I don't know if she really is condemning it. I don't know if she's not, I don't think she's supporting it, like cheering it on, but I don't think she's really negative about the dating interaction either. Like, I feel like she is as supportive as she can, being kind of, I don't think she they have a lot of interaction. They've got a really good, close-knit family. They've got friends. They hang out, but I don't think any of the siblings really understand each other, because like Chang-hee, he wants to make money, sort of, but then he's also very, very just cute and wholesome. The whole family's wholesome. Like, this is a wholesome K-drama, even though there's some very underlying darkness to it as well. And I think the darkness, you can see it from the work life with Mi-jung, or Ji-won's character, and then you could also see it with Mr. Gu when you see what happens with his former lifestyle. And yeah, so I kind of feel like that was a lot of interesting parts to this drama. Like, there was his silence, and then him having a very interesting history and background. Like, they kind of allude to it a little bit in some of the earlier sequences, because you could see like there's this dark undertone that he is hiding from somebody or something, and then we find out later on what it is. And I think that the drama writer did an amazing job of weaving that storyline into his current circumstance. And I think that that takes skills. And this drama writer who wrote My Liberation Notes, she also wrote My Ajishi. So I find it interesting that the titles both have My, which is 9, or possessiveness to something, like she is possessing something. And these two are so cute. Their friends dynamic is great, because they are showing childhood friends in this small countryside and partnering with each other, keeping each other company, keeping each other accountable, and just being best buddies. Like, the guy who owns the cafe, where he rides around in a scooter, he is 100% all in to whatever Chang-hee wants to do, whatever Gi-jung wants to do, even though Gi-jung and Chang-hee might be fighting, or they're not really giving each other the time of day. The buddy, he is very supportive, very helpful, which is very sweet, because he also wants to find love. But he's very supportive to his friends, because they're the main characters anyways. So I just found that I liked that friends dynamic. There was also another guy who would sometimes come around, not as much as this guy. He would come around, I think he was a teacher, he had a car, very level-headed, very responsible. He seemed like the country guy who didn't make it huge in the big city, but he's an accomplished guy. Like, he is a teacher, which is a very well-respected position in Korea, and is also continues to be their friend. Like, they're just a very supportive friends group. And I liked when I saw them like having drinks with each other, or hanging out in the front yard, just having food and drinks and just kind of talking and interacting with each other. And it felt like the summertime. Like, a lot of this drama felt like summer, and I felt like that was when they were really getting to know Mr. Gu. The love was happening, and I just felt like this part of it was especially cute. I liked them together. I liked all the friends dynamic, and yeah, that part was really good. And I just kind of wonder if we're gonna see Lee Min-gi do another K-drama like this one, because in his previous one, I didn't think that it was as good. So here they are, still in that guy's coffee shop, just chatting away, hanging out. And I do like the interaction. I kind of want to go to Korea and do this as well, where you just go. I'm kind of done with the big city, Seoul. I would like to go to Busan. I've been to Busan before once, and Jeju-do is a little bit south of Busan. Like it's in a small city. Actually, no, I'm mixing up two K-dramas. They're not in Jeju-do. They're in Sangpo. I don't know how far away Sangpo is, but it's a train ride away. It's in the countryside. And my friends who live in Seoul, they said that going out to the country is super fun. I don't know what you do out in the countryside, except for maybe try local cuisine, which would be amazing. I would love to try food from different parts of Korea because, different areas will have different food. Like Busan is known for their seafood because it's right off of the beach. Jeju-do is also off of the beach. I've been there, but I would like to explore it more. I was there for such a short period of time that I would like to experience it more. So, and I would like to go to little coffee shops, and I think that the pricing out in the countryside is probably a lot friendlier to the pocketbook than Seoul. I think Seoul is very reasonable, but I think being in the countryside is probably a little bit more affordable if you're just traveling on a budget, and that's probably what I'm going to be doing. I want to be able to go see as many places as possible and eat good food, but not like spend too much unnecessarily just because I want to be in the big city, and I don't. I want to try a totally new city now that I can. That's kind of what I want. So yeah, I think in episode 7 and 8, we do see Mi-jung and Mr. Gu becoming a lot more close to each other. He goes to pick her up at the subway station. They're having drinks and conversation at his house. And this has got to be one of the best scenes in my liberation notes. Like, it was so awkward, funny. So Gi-jung finally wants to confess her love to the single dad. And the single dad, he met up with Gi-jung, and she just, it was every teenage girl's nightmare to relive. She confessed her love, but part of this, she had a backup plan. And the two guys, Chang-hee and his friend, they were going to be this backup plan that if he does not positively interact with her after she confesses her crush on him, the friend was going to run, kind of hit her or half run her over on the sidewalk. And then she was going to fall, and then it was going to be this big distraction. So that way he would kind of forget that she just confessed her one-sided crush on him. But then what happened is he kind of brushed up against her. She fell. She actually did injure herself. So then the friend started, she runs off. And so the friend, he chases after her screaming, "Nuna!" And so then the single dad realizes, okay, it was kind of a setup. And so while he's standing there, watching her run off, the guy in the scooter chasing after her, concerned, and obviously they know each other, then you see single dad and Chang-hee, which is her brother, and Mi-jung, his co-worker brother, standing there awkwardly staring at each other, because I think they know that something happened, but it was a weird plan to begin with. It was strange to have a backup plan. She should have been more confident and maybe having a better setting for this confession of this crush to the single dad, rather than having this backup plan where it just went completely sideways. So yeah, I just thought that was very awkward, really funny. And I just thought it was very cute as well because the guy chases after her in his scooter, so concerned for her health and well being because she did end up injured. Yeah, that was funny. I laughed so hard, and I think I made a TikTok short video about it. So now we see Kijang, or excuse me, Mijang and Mr. Gu, and there's a lot of very quiet scenes with them where they're talking, getting to know each other. And she has reminded him many different times that the stray dogs are wild, they're dangerous. She chases them off. So I think that this is like a simile or a metaphor, actually a metaphor. It's a metaphor of how Mi Jung saves him from wild dogs or very bad situations. And then in subsequent episodes, we see how she did this earlier on without her really knowing it. So yeah, it's a great metaphor for how Mi Jung really saves Mr. Gu, and several times, because one, she saved him from wild dogs, like being bitten from, a wild dog, and you don't know if the wild dog has, disease or whatever. So it's dangerous to be bitten by a dog. The second, and this is spoiler alert, but I guess it's fine. She saves him from getting jumped at a train station because she's yelling at her drunk brother Chang-hee to get off the train, and somehow Mr. Gu hears her voice, jumps off the train too, and then it was only after the train closes and he runs off without his phone, which is good because I guess there is a tracking device on his phone, and that's when she saved him from getting beat up or even worse, very severely injured by a rival. And then I also feel like in the future, and this is speculation on my part, she saves him from his alcohol intake. So yeah. And so she and Mr. Gu have some pretty deep conversations. And I think like she also, for some reason with Mr. Gu, who is pretty gangster, and you could already just tell from the first few episodes, even though we don't find out until later on what he did in his prior life, even though he is exceptionally gangster, she has always been very secure in her conversations with him, never hesitant, very upfront, forward, very confident in her interactions with him, never like trying to get his attention, never being the pick-me girl. She was always just, there it is, I want this, and you either do it or you don't. And he did follow through eventually. And I think that gave her the backbone to stand up to her ex-boyfriend, who had her take out a loan, which is a horrible, horrible predicament for her to get herself into. She is so like done with that ex-boyfriend after the phone call. So she calls him, he's screaming at her, which, the nerve, the audacity of this man who took out a loan on her name, then defaults on it, yelling at her. But then I think it's her saving grace that she has nothing more to do with this guy, because in the background you hear him then yelling at a woman in his apartment, and then we find out that it was the ex-girlfriend that he then is with as they're running away from debt collectors. And then he starts screaming at her because she gets on the phone, and then I think he even starts beating her. I don't know. You don't see anything, but it just doesn't sound like it was a good situation. And I think Mi Jung really escaped a bad predicament had she stayed with this guy that she took a loan out. It was just a bad news. He was just bad news all the way around. Hopefully he changed, but I mean, who knows? But we don't have that much interaction with him anyways. And I think like Mr. Gu really wants her to step up and not be a doormat and get walked over by these different people, because like he really cares about her, and he even tells her like it only takes one phone call for him to take care of the former ex-boyfriend and take care of this loan. Actually, I don't know if it could take care of the loan, but he would definitely put the fear of God into the former ex-boyfriend. Yeah, because he has his ways, and I think that it's not what you would call rated G. I think that Mr. Gu was and is gangster, so you know he can definitely get things going. But I think also he ran away from that life for a reason. I don't think that it was serving him well. I think that he had some very negative, dark energy that was surrounding him for quite some time. So I definitely feel like he really benefited from taking this big break from that former life, going into the countryside, living a very wholesome, very, you know, aside from the drinking, a very wholesome life. Like he was living in the countryside, eating good homemade food, working the land, like literally working the farmlands, working with his hands for carpentry and construction. Who knew that Mr. Gu was just so like well-rounded guy that he could do everything if he put his mind to it. Like, and given his background, what was said later, that took, like, who knows what his childhood was like? Because, like, for him to have that type of gangster lifestyle, like, that's different. Like, you don't come from privilege or even middle class or even blue collar. You have to, I think, come from a very dark lifestyle to come from where Mr. Gu went, and then came to top of the heap. That's what I think personally. But yeah, Mr. Gu, he was quite the interesting guy. And I do like this picture. There's like several pictures, very picturesque, of Mr. Gu and Mi-jung in different places. Like I thought that the nighttime scene was very beautifully shot. The cinematography was great. The lighting was pretty. The way that the background was set up. I think that this one as well. And that's what I liked about this drama, My Liberation Notes. It was set in the countryside. There was no over-the-top expense for dramatic scenery or CGI or anything like that. It was very plain. It was very plain, but very beautifully shot. I thought that this was just a very pretty, very cute type of Korean drama. So that's kind of what I think for My Liberation Notes. It is, as I was telling someone earlier, a 5 out of 5 stars for me. I think that they have a wonderful chemistry, dynamics between the siblings, between the different love interests, and even the outside characters. They all were doing, all the interactions were great, as well as the story just was different. I watch a lot of K-dramas, so a lot of times it's very much the same trope, like rich guy, poor girl, they get together, overcoming all the obstacles, they break up, there's like these secondary love interests that try to get in the way, and then eventually love overcomes all and they get back together. So I'm glad that this was not that same storyline. I mean, I do like those storylines because I've watched it so often, and it's kind of like a nice thing to watch, very light, fun. Rom-coms are my thing, but this drama I thought was great too. So that's kind of My Liberation Notes, episodes 7 and 8. I hope you enjoyed my review. Highly recommend this K-drama. And please like and subscribe to my channel. It would, I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing with my channel or any of my social media, aside from trying to build a community where people can share interests and ideas. I know that there's a lot of websites out there, but yeah, let me know what you think. and signing off.